Most of you are familiar with the basics of health insurance, and it will be relevant when I get into some other slides, but you know, insurance companies tend to use these different things to try to help control costs and utilization. So most of you are familiar with the concept of deductibles, which would be the part that you pay before services start to get some assistance and payment from the insurance company. Copay is usually a flat dollar amount you pay upfront before services are paid. Coinsurance is usually a cost sharing, where maybe after the deductible 80% is paid, maybe 20% is paid by you, maybe it's 90%, maybe it's 10%, whatever, depends on the policies. Then out-of-pocket maximum, all of the policies from insurance companies tend to have a limit on what your out-of-pocket risk is in the event you get sick. Brad mentioned that there's a lifting a lifetime maximum, and I know for those of you that are my age or older, you probably remember the old 500,000 major medical plans, and then they became $1 million plans, and then $2 million lifetime maximums, and now that's been lifted. We had a case in 2012 that hit 3.5 million, so that's pretty significant. It's the first time I've ever seen that. As far as healthcare reform, you're going to hear a lot of acronyms. Healthcare reform, HRC. It's amazing how many acronyms there is. There's ACA, there's PAPACA. You know, a lot of this is defined as Obamacare. There's a lot of terms, but in the area of healthcare reform, for those insurance carriers that are offered through the online marketplaces, they need to go through a qualification process, which we did do that as a carrier. And so in North Dakota, the carriers that will be on the exchange, that online marketplace, are Blue Cross, Medica, and the Sanford Health Plan. Again, we use it, at least I do, the term exchange and health insurance marketplace interchangeably. The terminology has kind of morphed over the years. The location that you would go to access the exchange or online marketplace is the www.healthcare.gov, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. You can certainly work with local agents. You can stop at any of our offices, and then we also have people that can provide assistance that we'll be talking later. Again, the health insurance marketplace is where people purchase individual insurance. Just to kind of give you some background, out of the 50 states, I've kind of got this mislabeled, but there were 14 states that elected to develop their own online marketplace and get all the IT development into it. There's 36 states that are using the federal model, and North Dakota being one of them. And you know, I think, I can't speak for the legislators because we have some here, but you know, there's a lot of IT costs, and I think the last statistic I saw in Minnesota was they're up around 160 million on their IT development for their exchange. But North Dakota decided to go with the federal model with the ability to pull back into the state at some future date if we want to move ours to a state-run exchange. Also, there's the expansion of Medicaid, which will be talked about at further with a future presenter here. The subsidies, I think a lot of you might be familiar with the consumer subsidies. This is based on income. So really those receiving or whose income is 400% or under 400% of federal poverty level would have the ability to look at a premium subsidy. It's called advanced premium tax credit is technically the term. And we'll talk a little bit about that, who's eligible and who isn't. Some of the individuals and family household incomes that are below $250,000, in addition to subsidy to help pay for the premium, they also would have some assistance in help paying for some of the cost sharing amounts I talked about, like deductibles and things like that. So keep that in mind. Brad had mentioned the guarantee issue. That now takes effect January 1. So anybody can walk into an insurance office starting January 1, regardless of their medical history or the pre-existing condition, they'll automatically be accepted. So there's no more medical questions on applications. Just as a rule of thumb, throughout many years, I think overall for people that were applying for coverage in our firm, you know, whereby you had to fill out medical questions, roughly 92% of them were accepted. So, but there were definitely some that were not accepted. So now January 1, that there'll no longer be any medical questions. The guarantee issue was put in place as a result of what took place in the U.S. Supreme Court, and you know, that mandate was upheld. And you know, one of the things, let's just move to the next slide here. With the individual mandate, it really affects all Americans. You're required to have insurance effective in 2014, or there'll be a penalty, or in this case, a tax. So the Supreme Court didn't necessarily judge whether it was proper to force somebody to buy insurance, but they did indicate that the U.S. government had the taxing authority to tax somebody if in fact they didn't have insurance. So that's what this slide is all about. You can see that the implications are not significant the first year if someone did not have insurance, but over time that penalty or that tax grows. So you can see it becomes larger and larger. So the first year it's either 1% of your income or $95, whichever is greater, maximum of $285 if they're using the 1%. There is some concern, and everybody will have their opinions on this. For me, I'm an insurance guy, so I have concerns because, you know, the key for the success of a lot of this is to get the young people in, and you know, we'll have to see to what extent this penalty is enough to get people in the doors and signed up. But obviously that's our goal, to get people on insurance.